space was too quiet. Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison stood alone on the forward observation deck of the USS Resolute, hands clasped behind his back, staring out into the infinite black. The carthouse sector stretched before him, a region so still it almost felt staged, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. And maybe they were. "This is taking too long," a voice said behind him. Jack didn't turn immediately. He recognized the voice, Chief Engineer Alyssa Grant, and the strain in it mirrored his own. He let a moment pass before speaking. "They were supposed to meet us here 3 hours ago," Jack said quietly, still looking at the stars. "Imperials aren't known for being late." Alyssa stepped closer, her reflection appearing beside his on the transparent viewport. She crossed her arms, expression tight. "Then either they're making a point, or something's gone very wrong." Jack finally turned toward her, his expression carved from stone. "I'm not sure which option I'd prefer." The Resolute was Earth's pride, a diplomatic cruiser with enough weapons to defend itself but built for peace, not war. Its mission was clear: meet the Imperial delegation at the border, negotiate new trade and security terms, and return home as a symbol of humanity's place in the galaxy. It was supposed to be historic. Instead, the crew was pacing the deck in nervous silence, sensors sweeping empty space, comm channels hissing with unanswered hails. Jack moved back toward the command chair and sat, posture rigid. "Status report." "Engines on standby, shields cold, weapons offline," Alyssa replied crisply. "We're broadcasting standard diplomatic signals every 30 seconds. Still no response." "Keep it up," Jack said. "If they're listening, I want them to know we're exactly where we said we'd be." The minutes crawled by. Then, without warning, the stars rippled. At first, it was subtle, a shimmer, like light bending over heat. But then the shimmer tore open, splitting the blackness like a wound. Space itself seemed to peel back, revealing something vast, something wrong. A ship emerged. No, a predator. It was massive, easily 5 times the size of the Resolute, its hull gleaming like obsidian polished to a mirror finish. Red and black markings ran along its surface, glowing faintly like veins of magma. Weapon turrets bristled from every angle, tracking automatically, as though the ship itself was alive. "Contact," the sensor officer barked. "Design unknown, Imperial markings detected, but configuration doesn't match any Senate-registered vessel." Alyssa's voice was a whisper. "That's not a diplomatic escort." Jack stood slowly, never taking his eyes off the vessel. Every instinct screamed that this was no simple meeting. "Hail them," he ordered. The comm crackled, then cleared, and a voice filled the bridge, smooth and chilling. "Terran vessel," the voice said. "You were invited to parley." Jack stepped forward. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison of the USS Resolute. We are here under the terms of the Senate's invitation. Identify yourself." The reply came with a soft, amused chuckle. "I am Lord Varric, Executor of the Shadow Council. The Senate is no more." The words struck the crew like a physical blow. Murmurs rippled through the bridge. "The Senate?" Alyssa began, but Jack raised a hand. "Explain," Jack said sharply. Varric's voice was calm, almost indulgent. "The Senate was a mask, Terran. A polite fiction to keep weak minds docile. That mask has been burned away. The galaxy will no longer be governed by compromise. The Shadow Council rules now openly, as it always should have." Before Jack could respond, the black ship activated a device on its prow. The space in front of the Resolute shimmered, then exploded with light as a colossal holographic projection appeared. The crew stared in horror. It was footage, raw, unfiltered, beamed across the stars. Planets stripped to rock, their surfaces scorched and lifeless. Alien cities turned into ash fields, survivors herded into massive detention camps. Lines of prisoners, men, women, children of dozens of species, forced into labor beneath the barrel of Imperial rifles. Executions broadcast like entertainment. Entire cultures erased. Some crew looked away. Others couldn't. Alyssa's hands gripped the console so hard her knuckles turned white. This is the empire you sought to negotiate with, Varric's voice said, echoing through the bridge like a funeral bell. But the Senate hid it from you. We do not hide. The galaxy must see what lies beneath the skin and accept it. This is the natural order. Power without pretense. Rule without apology. The hologram shifted again, this time showing fleets of Shadow Council warships moving into formation across dozens of sectors. Planetary governors executed live before cheering soldiers. Symbols of the Senate torn down and replaced with the crimson and black sigil of the Shadow Council. And then the feed went dark. The bridge was silent but for the hum of the consoles. The crew looked shaken, some pale, some visibly angry. Alyssa swallowed hard. My God. Jack stood perfectly still, staring at the empty space where the projection had been. Helm, he said quietly. Increase power to shields. Keep weapons on standby, but do not fire unless ordered. Yes, sir. Varric's voice returned one last time, softer now, almost intimate. You have seen the truth. Consider this your invitation to survive. Those who resist will burn. Those who accept will endure. The transmission cut. The black ship lingered a moment longer, then turned away and disappeared back into its rift, leaving only silence and a scattering of stars. No one moved. Alyssa finally turned to Jack. Her voice cracked when she spoke. This isn't diplomacy anymore. This is war. Jack's jaw tightened, his heart pounding like a war drum. No, he said grimly. This is the galaxy showing us its true face. He looked back out at the stars, and for the first time in years, he felt small. Not weak, not helpless, but aware of something vast and dark staring back. And he knew with chilling certainty, the peace humanity had clung to was already over. The bridge of the Resolute was silent. Not calm, never calm, but taut, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The stars outside gleamed cold and indifferent, a backdrop to something far more sinister that had just been set into motion. Jack Morrison stood at the center of the command deck, hands braced on the back of the captain's chair. His crew moved around him like shadows, quieter than usual, all of them haunted by what they had seen. The images of burning worlds, enslaved species, and cheering soldiers under crimson banners had seared themselves into their minds. Jack straightened. Bring shields online, he said finally, his voice low but firm. Alyssa glanced back at him from her station. We're not taking fire yet. Exactly, Jack said. And I want to keep it that way. Shields now. Weapons, stand by only. No one fires without my direct order. The Resolute's hum changed pitch as her energy shielding flared to life, faintly glowing across the hull. It was a small comfort, like holding an umbrella in a hurricane, but it was something. Then, the black ship returned. Not through a jump, not through any standard FTL corridor, it simply appeared, as though it had been waiting just outside reality for the right moment to strike. Contact, the sensor officer called. Same signature as before, Shadow Council warship. It's powering weapons. Jack's jaw clenched. Get me a channel. The comms crackled, and that cold, velvet voice filled the bridge once more. Terran vessel, said Lord Varric. You have seen the truth. Now you will be measured. Jack stepped forward, glaring at the viewscreen. Measured? You ambushed us under the guise of diplomacy. That's not a measurement, that's a threat. Varric chuckled softly, the sound low and mocking. Not a threat, he said. A trial. Only those strong enough to endure deserve to exist in the new order. Fight, or fall. The black ship's hangar bays opened. They didn't deploy a handful of shuttles or drones. They unleashed a storm. Dozens, no, hundreds of fighters poured out like a swarm of razor-edged insects, their formations tight and precise. They fanned out into attack wings, encircling the Resolute with mechanical grace. Alyssa's throat went dry. Jack. I see them, Jack said. His voice was calm, but his fingers dug into the chair hard enough to ache. Helm, evasive pattern delta. Weapons, lock targets, but hold fire. The fighters circled closer, a halo of death. Then, as if on cue, they dove. The first salvo slammed into the Resolute's shields, bathing the bridge in red light as alarms wailed. The deck shuddered under the impact, nearly throwing the crew off their feet. "Shields at 80%. Alyssa called out, bracing herself against the console. "Return fire." Jack barked. "Aim for lead elements, break their formation." The Resolute's guns roared to life, sending streaks of crimson energy through the void. One fighter exploded in a brief flare of light, then another. The swarm scattered, then reformed like a school of predatory fish. "Shields at 60%. Jack gritted his teeth. "Helm, keep us rolling. Don't let them hit us broadside." The cruiser banked hard, engines straining as the helmsman fought to keep them from becoming an easy target. The second wave hit heavier, more coordinated. Sparks rained down from the overhead panels as systems took damage. One of the tactical screens went dead with a sharp hiss. "Starboard thrusters offline," an ensign shouted. "Reroute power from auxiliary." Jack snapped. "Keep us maneuvering." The Resolute spun, rolling under the next barrage, and let loose a full spread of torpedoes. Two more fighters went up in brilliant fireballs, debris spinning across the void. But for every one they destroyed, three more pressed the attack. Varric's voice returned, smooth and infuriatingly calm, cutting across their calms. "Yes. Fight. Show me the strength the Senate feared in your kind." Jack ignored him. "Weapons, concentrate fire on the next wing. I want a gap, now." The Resolute's cannons lit the darkness, carving a hole through the formation. For a moment, they had breathing room. "Shields at 30%. Alyssa shouted over the din. Jack's heart hammered. One more pass like that and they'd be naked. Then, suddenly, the fighters broke off. They didn't retreat chaotically. They moved with eerie precision, reforming into a perfect line before the black warship. The viewscreen flickered and Varric appeared. He was tall, his face angular and severe, with skin like pale stone and eyes that glowed faintly red. His armor gleamed black, veins of crimson light pulsing as though it were alive. "You survived," Varric said simply, almost with satisfaction. "Longer than I expected." Jack stood at full height. "We're not here to fight your war. But if you bring it to us, we won't run." Varric's expression didn't change, but there was something like amusement in his voice. "Good. The weak are not worthy of the new order. Tell your people what you have seen. Tell them the mask is gone. The culling begins soon. Those who resist will burn. Those who kneel may serve." Without another word, the Shadow Council warship turned away. A rift tore open in space, and the massive vessel vanished, its swarm of fighters following like obedient predators. Silence returned to the bridge. Only the alarms reminded them how close they had come to dying. Slowly, Alyssa turned to Jack, her face pale but set. "He just declared war on us." Jack looked at the stars where Varric's ship had been, his jaw tightening. "No," he said, his voice grim and low. "He just declared judgment." He turned back to his crew. "Get me fleet command. Priority 1. The entire alliance needs to hear this. Not just the brass, everyone. If Varric's right, this isn't just about Earth. It's about every free world out there." "And if they don't believe us?" Alyssa asked. Jack's expression hardened. "Then we make them believe," he said. "Because if we don't stand now, there won't be anything left to save." The bridge was silent for a long moment as the words sank in. Somewhere in the void, Jack could almost feel Varric's eyes still on them, waiting for humanity's next move. And Jack Morrison swore silently to himself that the next time they met, it wouldn't be in fear. It would be in fire. The war room beneath Fleet Command in Washington, D.C., felt like the beating heart of the planet. Massive holographic displays floated above the table, showing fleet positions, projected Shadow Council movements, and surveillance data gathered from deep space probes. Jack Morrison stood at the center, still in his black duty uniform, face lined from sleepless nights. Alyssa Grant was at his side, pale but sharp-eyed, a datapad in hand. Around them were admirals, generals, politicians, and delegates from allied colonies, each one tense, each one trying to decide whether humanity was ready to go to war with something as old and terrible as the Shadow Council. Jack slammed a hand on the table. "You've seen the footage. You've seen what they did to the Senate, what they're doing to entire civilizations right now. This isn't speculation. This is happening. And if we sit here debating until it reaches Earth's doorstep, it'll be too late." General Marcus Hale leaned forward, his face grim in the hollow's light. "Morrison, mobilizing the entire home fleet will leave our other colonies exposed. If this is a feint..." "This isn't a feint," Alyssa cut in sharply. She turned her datapad, showing the telemetry from the Resolute's encounter. "Their ship didn't just fight us, it studied us. Varric was testing how we'd respond. And he let us live so we'd carry his message back. He wants us to panic. He wants us divided." Senator Laura King, head of the Security Council, folded her arms. "And what exactly are you suggesting? Preemptive war?" Jack met her gaze. His voice was cold, resolute. "I'm suggesting survival. If Varric's telling the truth, the purge has already begun across the Outer Rim. We either stand together with every world willing to fight, or we stand alone when they come here." The room went silent. Then General Hale nodded slowly. "Mobilize the fleet. Get the Allies on secure channels. If we're going to fight, we hit them where it hurts, hard, and first." 3 weeks later, the stars over the Helios expanse burned with engine trails. Jack stood on the Resolute's bridge, helmet tucked under one arm, watching as Earth's home fleet assembled around them, 60 capital ships in perfect wedge formation, flanked by carrier groups, escort frigates, and hundreds of fighters. From Mars to Vega, from Titan to Ceres, every allied world had sent something. Humanity had never been more united or more afraid. "Fleet reports ready," said the comms officer. "Awaiting your signal, Commander." Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was no longer a diplomatic mission. This was a stand. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "Today, we hold the line." "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer shouted. "Shadow Council fleet inbound, count is." "God, there's hundreds of them." A rift split open in front of the fleet, black and jagged, like space itself had been wounded. And out of it came the enemy. The first ships through were massive destroyers, shaped like black blades, followed by cruisers with glowing crimson hull patterns that pulsed like veins. At the center came a behemoth, Varric's flagship, even larger than Jack remembered, its hull bristling with weapons, its presence radiating menace. "Open channel," Jack ordered. The screen lit up with Varric's face. His crimson-lit armor seemed to pulse with life, and there was something almost delighted in his expression. "You brought allies," he said smoothly. "Good. The galaxy will watch you burn together." Jack allowed himself the faintest of smiles. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." He turned back to his crew. "All ships, fire at will." The void erupted into chaos. Railguns thundered, hurling hypervelocity rounds that streaked through the blackness like angry comets. Human destroyers fired in perfect unison, carving through the first wave of Shadow Council cruisers. Torpedoes flared bright, detonating among enemy formations. But the Shadow Fleet answered in kind. Their energy lances cut through space like scythes, slicing 2 Alliance frigates clean in half. Fighters screamed in from both sides, weaving deadly webs of fire and counterfire. The black of space became a storm of light. "Shields at 70%. Alyssa called over the roar of the battle. "Keep us in the fight." Jack shouted back. "Helm, bring us around. I want a firing solution on that flagship." The Resolute banked hard, her guns blazing, hammering away at Varric's forward shields. The flagship's defenses flared bright but held, and then it struck back. A crimson beam lanced out, slamming into the Resolute. The ship shuddered violently, consoles exploding in a spray of sparks. Crew were thrown to the deck. "Shields at 30%. Alyssa shouted, coughing from the smoke. Jack hauled himself upright, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. His voice was steady, almost calm. Overcharge the main coil. Dump every last bit of power into the forward gun. Alyssa looked up, stunned. Jack, that will fry half our systems. Then we fight half dead, Jack said, his eyes blazing. But we fight. Do it. She hesitated only a second, then nodded. Overcharging. The Resolute's core roared, lights dimming across the ship as power surged forward. The deck vibrated under their feet. Target locked, the weapons officer shouted. Jack's voice dropped to a growl. Fire. The Resolute unleashed a beam so bright it turned the battlefield white for a moment. It struck Varric's flagship dead center, burning through its shields and tearing open its hull. Secondary explosions rippled along its spine. Varric's image flickered on the viewscreen, no longer calm, furious now, his voice a snarl. This is not the end, Terran. You are not the victors, you are the heralds of a greater storm. A crimson rift tore open behind the flagship, and in a flash of light, it vanished, the surviving shadow ships retreating with it. Silence fell across the bridge. Then cheers erupted. The surviving Alliance ships lit up the comm channels with victory calls. They had stood against the Shadow Council and won. But Jack didn't cheer. He stared at the empty void where Varric's ship had been, chest rising and falling with each breath. Alyssa stepped beside him, her face streaked with sweat and soot. It's over, she said softly. Jack shook his head. No. This was just the first strike. Varric's not done. He's going to come back with more. He's going to come back smarter. Alyssa nodded, her expression hard. Then we'll be ready. Jack finally allowed himself a small, grim smile. Yeah, he said, looking out at the stars. Next time, we take the fight to them. And under the cold, endless night of space, Jack Morrison swore that when the Shadow Council returned, they would find humanity waiting not with fear, but with fire.